Have you ever wondered why you let your emotions take over? It feels like you're a puppet, pulled in every direction by impulses you barely understand, let alone control. You wake up determined, ready to face the day, but one word, one look, and your mood shifts entirely. The good news is, it doesn't have to be this way. In today's video, we'll explore something that Buddhist teachings have understood for centuries. You can master your mind and free yourself from emotional turmoil. This isn't about becoming a robot, devoid of feelings, but rather about discovering balance. I'll share 10 transformative lessons grounded in Buddhist philosophy to help you navigate life's highs and lows with clarity and composure. You'll no longer let your emotions dictate your life. Instead, you'll decide how to live. Don't miss the final lesson. It's the one that has personally helped me find peace in the most challenging moments. Ready to take control? But before we begin, let me tell you a story. It's a story about finding wisdom in the midst of chaos, one that reflects the heart of what we're about to learn. There once was a young man named Arjun who lived in a quiet village. He was known for his kind heart, but also for his emotional intensity. Whether it was joy, anger, or sadness, Arjun felt everything deeply, and his relationships often suffered because of it. His emotions were like storms, unpredictable and overpowering. One day, while walking through the forest, he came across a monk sitting peacefully under a tree. Intrigued by the monk's serene presence, Arjun asked, "How can you remain so calm, even when everything around you seems chaotic?" The monk smiled gently and said, "The mind is like a pond. If you throw a stone into it, the water ripples and becomes disturbed. But if you let the water settle, it can reflect the sky as it is. When you let your emotions rule you, your mind is like a disturbed pond. But if you learn to observe and not react, your mind will become as still as the water on a calm day." Arjun, curious and desperate for change, asked the monk to teach him. The monk agreed but warned, "It won't be easy. It requires practice, discipline, and patience." For weeks, Arjun returned to the forest, learning meditation techniques, mindfulness, and how to watch his thoughts without becoming entangled in them. At first, it was hard. His emotions still flared up, like waves crashing in a storm. But slowly, he began to notice a change. When anger or sadness arose, he could observe it like a cloud passing in the sky, rather than letting it consume him. One day, after an argument with a friend, Arjun sat under the tree and meditated. He felt the surge of anger, but didn't let it control him. Instead, he breathed deeply, watched the anger as if it were a bird flying past, and allowed it to dissipate naturally. When he opened his eyes, the monk, who had been quietly observing, said, "You've learned the first step. It's not about suppressing your emotions, but about not letting them control you. Like the pond, ripples may form, but the stillness will always return if you allow it." From that day forward, Arjun applied these teachings to his life. He became less reactive and more thoughtful. His relationships improved, and he found a sense of peace he had never known before. The lesson here is that mastering your mind doesn't mean eliminating emotions. It means learning to live with them in harmony. With practice and patience, anyone can cultivate this inner calm, even amidst life storms. Before we dive into the first lesson, if you find these videos helpful, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss new insights. Let's begin. 1. Know yourself. On my journey toward mastering my mind and finding inner peace, I've come to realize that self-awareness is the foundation of everything. To truly know myself means understanding the roots of my emotions and thoughts. Why do I feel anger in certain situations? Why does anxiety creep in when I'm alone with my thoughts? These questions are not burdens. They are opportunities to explore the deeper layers of who I am. The Buddha's teachings have guided me in this exploration. He taught that ignorance is one of the root causes of suffering, and I've seen this truth in my own life. When I lack understanding of my mind, I react impulsively, often creating unnecessary pain for myself and others. But when I take the time to observe my emotions, I create space to respond with intention rather than react out of habit. I've started to think of my mind as a garden. If I leave it untended, weeds, negative thoughts and emotions will inevitably grow. But self-awareness is my way of gardening. It allows me to recognize which thoughts to nurture and which to let go of. Meditation has been my most powerful tool in this practice. Each morning, I sit quietly and focus on my breath. As thoughts arise, I observe them without judgment. This is anger, I might say. This is fear. By naming them, I separate myself from the emotions and see them for what they are: temporary visitors. Journaling has also been a transformative practice for me. When I write down my thoughts and feelings, I begin to see patterns. I've noticed how often I compare myself to others or dwell on past mistakes. These patterns were shaping my reality without my conscious awareness. Now that I can see them, I can choose to respond differently. Knowing myself also means reflecting on my values. Society often tells me what I should want: success, wealth, recognition. But I've started to ask myself what truly brings me joy and peace. For me, it's moments of stillness in nature, meaningful conversations, and creating something with purpose. The more I align my actions with these values, the more grounded and content I feel. This journey of self-awareness is ongoing. It's not about achieving a final state of enlightenment, but about being curious and kind toward myself every step of the way. By knowing myself, I've started to free my mind from the cycles of reactivity and move closer to the peace I seek. 2. Strengthen your compassion. One of the most transformative lessons I've learned is the power of compassion, for myself and for others. For so long, I believed kindness was something I gave outwardly, but I rarely turned it inward. It wasn't until I embraced compassion as a practice that I began to soften the grip of anger and resentment, both toward others and myself. The Buddha often spoke of compassion as a boundless quality, one that has the power to transcend suffering. I've seen this truth in my own life. When I hold on to anger, it's like gripping a hot coal. It burns me far more than it affects anyone else. But when I approach situations with compassion, I feel lighter. It doesn't mean excusing harmful actions, but it does mean recognizing that everyone, including myself, is navigating struggles I may not see. I found that compassion begins with how I speak to myself. For years, I was my harshest critic. Every mistake I made, no matter how small, became ammunition for self-judgment. But I've learned to pause and ask myself, would I speak to a friend this way? The answer is always no. So why would I not extend that same kindness to myself? By practicing self-compassion, I've been able to let go of shame and embrace growth. Compassion for others has been equally transformative. When someone angers me or treats me unfairly, my first instinct is often to react defensively. But I've started to pause and consider, what might this person be going through? What pain or fear could be driving their actions? This shift in perspective doesn't justify their behavior, but it allows me to respond with understanding rather than escalating the conflict. One practice that has helped me deepen my compassion is the Buddhist tradition of loving kindness meditation. I sit quietly, close my eyes, and repeat phrases like, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be free from suffering." Then I extend those wishes to others, including those I struggle with. It's not always easy, but it reminds me that we all share the same desire for peace and happiness. Strengthening compassion has also taught me to set healthier boundaries. True compassion isn't about letting others take advantage of me. It's about respecting myself enough to say no when needed, while still holding kindness in my heart. This balance has brought a sense of peace to my relationships. Compassion is not something I perfected overnight, and I'm still learning. But each time I choose kindness over anger, I feel a little freer. By cultivating compassion, I've begun to transform how I see myself and the world around me. It's a practice that not only heals, but also opens the door to a more peaceful and fulfilling life. 3. Set boundaries with awareness. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned on my path to inner peace is the importance of setting boundaries with awareness. For much of my life, I struggled to say no, feeling obligated to meet others' expectations, even at the cost of my well-being. It took time, but I've come to understand that protecting my energy and time is not selfish. It's necessary for preserving my inner balance. In Buddhism, there is a teaching about the middle way, walking the path of balance between extremes. For me, setting boundaries is part of finding that middle way. It's about creating space where I can nurture myself without shutting others out. When I overextend myself, I deplete my energy and end up feeling resentful. When I'm too rigid, I isolate myself. Boundaries help me navigate this delicate balance. Learning to say no without guilt has been transformative. I used to fear that saying no would disappoint others or make me seem unkind. But I've realized that when I say yes to everything, I'm often saying no to myself. No to rest. No to peace. No to the things that truly matter to me. Now, when faced with a request, I pause and reflect. Is this aligned with my values and capacity? Will this contribute to my well-being or drain it? If the answer is no, I allow myself to decline with kindness. I've also found that communication is key when setting boundaries. When I express my needs honestly and compassionately, I create understanding rather than conflict. For example, instead of simply refusing an invitation, I might say, "I appreciate the offer, but I need some time to recharge." This approach has helped me protect my energy while maintaining positive relationships. Another important aspect of setting boundaries is recognizing when I'm carrying responsibilities that aren't mine to bear. I've often taken on others' emotional burdens, trying to fix their problems or make them happy. But I've learned that I can't pour from an empty cup. By focusing on my own well-being first, I'm better able to show up for others when it truly matters. Setting boundaries is a continuous practice, not a one-time act. There are moments when guilt still creeps in, or when I overextend myself. But each time I realign, I feel a sense of freedom and clarity. By protecting my energy with mindful limits, I've created a life that feels more peaceful and intentional. This practice has taught me that saying no to what drains me is ultimately a way of saying yes to what nurtures my spirit. 4. Practice detachment. One of the most profound teachings I've embraced on my journey is the practice of detachment. For so long, I clung to outcomes, possessions, and even relationships, believing they were the key to my happiness. But as the Buddha taught, attachment is the root of suffering. Letting go of this clinging has been both challenging and liberating, offering me a glimpse of true freedom. For me, detachment doesn't mean apathy or giving up on my dreams. It means not being overly attached to how things turn out. Life is unpredictable, and the more I try to control it, the more frustrated I become. By letting go of my need for certainty, I've found a deeper sense of peace. I still set goals and work toward them, but I remind myself that my worth and happiness don't depend on the results. Possessions were another area where I struggled with attachment. I used to equate success with material things, a nice home, the latest gadgets, or a closet full of clothes. But I began to notice that these things didn't bring lasting happiness. The joy they brought was fleeting, and soon I was chasing the next thing. Practicing detachment has helped me shift my focus from accumulating things to appreciating what I already have. Detachment has also transformed my relationships. I used to hold on to people out of fear of losing them, even when the relationships were no longer healthy. Letting go doesn't mean I love or care for them any less. It means I respect their journey as much as my own. I've learned to cherish the time we share without clinging to the idea that it must last forever. Meditation has been an essential tool in my practice of detachment. When I sit in stillness and observe my thoughts, I see how often my mind gets caught up in what-ifs and shoulds. By simply watching these thoughts without attaching to them, I create space to let them go. This practice reminds me that I am not my thoughts, my possessions, or even my circumstances. I am the awareness behind them. Detachment is not about avoiding life, but about living it fully, free from the chains of expectation and clinging. It's a practice that takes time and patience, but each step I take brings me closer to the freedom I seek. By letting go, I've discovered a profound truth. True peace comes not from holding on, but from allowing life to flow as it will. 5. Cultivate mindful communication. For a long time, I underestimated the power of communication. I used to speak without much thought, often reacting impulsively or saying things I later regretted. But through my practice, I've learned that cultivating mindful communication can transform not only my relationships, but also my sense of inner peace. Mindful communication begins with intention. Before I speak, I pause and ask myself, is this true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This simple reflection has helped me avoid unnecessary conflicts and misunderstandings. Instead of reacting out of anger or frustration, I try to choose words that reflect my values of compassion and understanding. It's not always easy, but when I approach conversations with kindness, the results are profound. Listening deeply is another essential part of mindful communication. I've realized how often I used to listen with the intent to reply, rather than to truly understand. Now, when someone speaks, I focus entirely on their words, their tone, and even the emotions behind their message. By being fully present, I can respond with empathy rather than defensiveness. This practice has deepened my connections with others and fostered greater harmony in my interactions. There are times, however, when staying mindful during difficult conversations feels like an uphill battle. In those moments, I remind myself to take a breath. Breathing gives me a moment to center myself and respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. It's a small act, but it makes a big difference in maintaining peace. I've also learned the value of silence. Sometimes, the most mindful thing I can do is say nothing at all. In the past, I felt compelled to fill every gap in a conversation or defend my point of view. But I now see that silence can be a powerful way to hold space for others and to reflect on my own emotions. Practicing mindful communication is a journey, not a destination. There are times when I fall back into old habits, interrupting, overreacting, or failing to listen. But each time I catch myself, I see it as an opportunity to grow. With practice, I've found that communicating mindfully doesn't just improve my relationships, it also brings a sense of calm and clarity to my inner world. When I speak with intention and listen with presence, I'm not just engaging with others, I'm nurturing a space of mutual respect and understanding. In this way, mindful communication becomes a bridge to both external harmony and internal peace. 6. Be present in the moment. I've often found myself stuck in the past, replaying regrets or projecting into the future, worrying about things that might never happen. It's as if my mind has a life of its own, pulling me away from the only thing that truly exists, the present moment. Practicing mindfulness has been my anchor, bringing me back to the here and now and freeing me from the endless cycle of overthinking. Being present is not always easy. My mind tends to wander, whether I'm working, spending time with loved ones, or even meditating. But I've discovered that the key to mindfulness is gentle persistence. When my thoughts drift, I remind myself to return to the moment, not with frustration, but with compassion. I might focus on the rhythm of my breath, the sensations in my body, or the sounds around me. These simple acts ground me in reality. One of the most significant changes I've experienced through mindfulness is a reduction in overthinking. When I'm fully engaged in the present, there's no space for worries about the future or regrets about the past. For example, when I'm eating a meal, I try to savor each bite, noticing the flavors and textures. When I'm walking, I pay attention to the feeling of my feet on the ground and the air on my skin. These small practices bring a sense of peace that overthinking could never provide. The practice of mindfulness has also taught me to let go of the need for perfection. In the past, I would get caught up in endless planning and second-guessing, trying to control every detail of my life. Now, I see that the present moment is enough. By focusing on what I can do here and now, I'm able to approach challenges with clarity and resilience. Of course, there are days when staying present feels like an impossible task. On those days, I remind myself that mindfulness is not about doing it perfectly. It's about showing up. Each moment is an opportunity to begin again, to return to the now, and to find peace in the simplicity of being. The present moment is where life happens. By anchoring myself in the here and now, I've discovered a profound sense of freedom and joy. It's a practice that requires patience and persistence, but the rewards are immeasurable. When I choose to be present, I'm not just living, I'm truly alive. 7. Surround yourself with positive energy. One of the most transformative decisions I've made is to surround myself with positive energy. For a long time, I didn't pay much attention to the impact my relationships had on my well-being. I thought I could endure negativity or toxicity without being affected, but I was wrong. The people we spend time with shape our thoughts, our emotions, and even our spiritual path. Choosing relationships that uplift and support me has been vital in nourishing my inner peace. In Buddhism, the concept of kalyana mitta, or spiritual friends, is central. These are people who encourage us to walk the path of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. I've come to understand that a strong community doesn't mean surrounding myself with people who agree with me all the time or avoid difficult truths. Instead, it means being with those who inspire me to grow and remind me of my higher purpose. Creating a positive circle required me to let go of relationships that no longer served my well-being. This wasn't easy. There were people I cared about deeply, but whose negativity, constant criticism, or lack of respect drained my energy. Letting go felt like a loss, but over time I realized it was an act of self-compassion. I began to attract relationships that were rooted in mutual respect, kindness, and growth. Spending time with uplifting people doesn't just make me feel better, it challenges me to be better. When I'm around those who are kind, wise, or deeply authentic, I'm reminded of what I aspire to be. Their energy inspires me to live with more mindfulness and compassion. For instance, a close friend's dedication to meditation has motivated me to deepen my own practice, not out of comparison, but out of shared inspiration. I also recognize that surrounding myself with positive energy includes the environment I create for myself. My home, my workspace, and even the media I consume contribute to the energy that surrounds me. I've made an effort to cultivate spaces that feel peaceful and nurturing, and to limit my exposure to negativity, whether it's on social media, in the news, or in entertainment. Surrounding myself with positive energy is an ongoing practice. It means being intentional about who and what I allow into my life. It's not about avoiding challenges or difficult emotions, but about creating a foundation of support that helps me face them with grace. By choosing relationships and environments that uplift me, I've found that my spiritual path feels lighter, my heart feels fuller, and my mind feels clearer. 8. Focus on your inner growth. For much of my life, I chased goals that were shaped by others' expectations. I thought that achieving certain milestones, getting a prestigious job, owning a beautiful home, or earning praise from others would bring me happiness. But no matter how much I accomplished, I always felt like something was missing. It wasn't until I began focusing on my inner growth that I found true fulfillment. In Buddhism, we are encouraged to look inward and align our actions with our values. This shift required me to ask myself tough questions. What do I truly want? What brings me joy and peace? What kind of person do I want to be? These reflections helped me realize that external achievements are fleeting, but inner growth creates a sense of lasting contentment. Focusing on my inner growth means pursuing goals that resonate with my heart, not the expectations of others. For instance, I've found joy in meditation and mindfulness, not because anyone told me to, but because they bring me closer to my authentic self. It's a process of aligning my actions with my values, whether that's practicing compassion, embracing simplicity, or cultivating patience. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that growth is not linear. There are setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when I feel stuck. But instead of seeing these moments as failures, I now view them as opportunities to learn. Just as a seed needs both sunlight and rain to grow, I've realized that challenges are an essential part of my spiritual journey. Letting go of comparison has been another crucial part of this process. In the past, I often measured my success against others, which left me feeling inadequate or envious. But Buddhism teaches that each person's path is unique. By focusing on my inner growth, I've learned to celebrate my progress, no matter how small, and to appreciate others' journeys without jealousy or judgment. Focusing on inner growth doesn't mean ignoring the world around me. It means engaging with it in a way that feels authentic. Whether I'm working, spending time with loved ones, or simply walking in nature, I try to bring mindfulness and intention to each moment. This practice has helped me find fulfillment in the present, rather than constantly seeking it in the future. Inner growth is not a destination, it's a lifelong practice. By turning inward and aligning with my values, I've discovered a sense of peace and purpose that no external achievement could ever provide. It's a journey that requires patience, self-compassion, and perseverance, but it's also the most rewarding path I've ever walked. 9. Seek guidance when needed. For years, I believed that I had to handle everything on my own. I thought seeking help was a sign of weakness, a crack in the armor I worked so hard to maintain. But as I've grown, I've come to see the wisdom in reaching out to others. Seeking guidance doesn't diminish my strength, it enhances it. It's a way of acknowledging that I am human, with limits and blind spots, and that others' insights can illuminate paths I might not see on my own. In Buddhism, the concept of kalyana mita, or spiritual friends and mentors, teaches us the value of surrounding ourselves with those who uplift and guide us. I've found that having a teacher or mentor, someone with more experience and wisdom, can provide clarity when I feel lost or overwhelmed. Their perspective often reminds me of what truly matters, helping me realign with my values and intentions. There have been times in my life when I felt adrift, burdened by emotions or struggles that I couldn't untangle on my own. It was in those moments that I turned to trusted mentors, therapists, or even friends who knew me well. Their support didn't solve my problems for me, but their guidance offered new ways of thinking, encouraging me to see beyond my immediate challenges. Sometimes, just hearing someone say, "I've been there too," was enough to reignite my hope. Seeking guidance also means being open to learning from unlikely places. I've found wisdom in books, nature, and even in quiet conversations with strangers. The universe has a way of offering guidance when I'm willing to listen. Often, the most profound insights come not from grand gestures, but from simple moments of connection and understanding. It's important to approach guidance with humility. There have been times when my ego resisted advice, convincing me that I didn't need help or that I already knew the answers. But when I let go of that resistance, I found that seeking guidance is not about giving away my power. It's about expanding it. The wisdom of others enriches my own understanding, allowing me to navigate life's challenges with greater clarity and grace. Now, I embrace the practice of seeking guidance as an act of self-care. It reminds me that I don't have to walk my path alone, and that there is strength in vulnerability. Whether I turn to a teacher, a therapist, or a trusted friend, I know that seeking help is a step toward balance, growth, and peace. 10. Be patient with yourself. I used to be my harshest critic. Whenever I made a mistake or fell short of a goal, I would berate myself endlessly, as if self-criticism could somehow speed up my progress. But over time, I've learned that patience with myself is not just a kindness, it's a necessity. Growth takes time, and the journey is as important as the destination. In Buddhism, we're reminded of the impermanence of all things, including our struggles and setbacks. This teaching has helped me see that every stumble is a part of the process, not a final verdict on my worth. When I falter, I try to remind myself that growth is not linear. It's a winding path with peaks and valleys. Embracing this truth has allowed me to approach my journey with greater compassion. Celebrating small wins has been a transformative practice for me. In the past, I only acknowledged major milestones, ignoring the countless small steps that led me there. Now, I take time to recognize even the smallest progress. Whether it's a day of mindfulness, an act of kindness, or simply showing up for myself when it's hard. Each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. Self-compassion has also become a cornerstone of my growth. When I fall short, I ask myself, what would I say to a friend in this situation? This simple question helps me soften the harshness of my inner voice. Instead of criticizing myself, I try to offer the same kindness and understanding that I would extend to someone I love. Patience also means letting go of unrealistic expectations. I used to set rigid timelines for my progress, believing that I needed to achieve certain goals by a specific age or stage in life. But I've come to see that growth doesn't adhere to a schedule. By releasing those self-imposed deadlines, I've freed myself to grow at my own pace, in my own time. Of course, there are days when impatience creeps in, when I want to be further along, or when I feel frustrated by my mistakes. In those moments, I remind myself that even the tallest trees began as tiny seeds. Growth is a slow, steady process, and each moment of patience brings me closer to the person I aspire to be. Being patient with myself has transformed the way I approach life. It has taught me to embrace my imperfections, to celebrate progress rather than perfection, and to trust that each step, no matter how small, is leading me toward greater peace and understanding.